Okay, so I'll carry on with the second project. This one is another year ongoing project. And so for this one, we are looking into growing long-term crop as a ground cover, particularly like white clover, in part because perennial peanut is no longer the seed is no longer available to the country, and so we want to examine if white clover will be a good substitute. So it does have lots of benefits of growing white clover as a cover crop, fixed nitrogen, dense shallow root mass with a stolon and rhizome is a perennial system. It's good for erosion control, and once it's established, is will outcompete the weeds. It's shade tolerant, so you can grow it under the orchard tree system or trellis cropping system. You can step on it, it don't die, create a habitat that is also good for beneficial insects. So it's like insectary plants uh, because it has small flowers, allow for parasitoid and hoverflies, or even lots of bees can attend their pollen and nectar. The drawback is slow growing. It takes about 6 months to fully cover the ground, and so it also prefer to be shaded than a full sun situation, especially during its initial growth. So some solution we try to come up with this project is to grow cover crop mix with other cover crops so that other cover crop can provide some shading for it while it's establishing. And we also try out sod planting instead of direct seeded into the ground, plant it in trays so that we can pull the whole tray out, kind of planting a turf sod. And so we find that some most farmer we ask, they are willing to mix black oat with buckwheat with white clover, and these two cover crop also die back their animals in a few months. So while white clover is growing fully grown, then this other cover crop like black oat and buckwheat would be snatched out of the way. Planting cover crop sort can also speed up the establishment. So we call this companion planting. So here is a field trial that we finally successfully grow white clover to full establishment. So initially the buckwheat are very dominant in growth, but the seedling of white clover is embedded under the clover with some buckwheat slowly take over about 2.5 months, mostly dominated by black oat. So the black oat also shade out the white clover further. And at 4 months, we can see a full grown of the white clover with the black oat still growing. About 6 months, then the black oat will die back. At 8 months, we started to transplant some cash crop. So in this case, we transplant our eggplant using some paper wheat mat to allow the eggplant to establish, the seedling to establish. And 10 months old, so we have full grown, happy growing white clover, and the eggplant is also growing well. So we call this Akamai cover crop mix. And so to evaluate whether this is benefit for the soil health, we conduct two trials. And in this presentation, I will just focus on one of the trial we did at Magoon teaching plot with our student. And we compare the cover crop versus no cover crop control. So using nematode as soil health indicator and also checking the infiltration rate and microbial soil respiration using Sovita test kit, the cover crop um, within 2 months after planting uh, increase the water infiltration tremendously, although the number are not very significant. This is in the first trial where we only established the cover crop for 3 months. In the first trial, we didn't successfully establish the white clover. So it's only 2 months of white clover growth. Microbial respiration at 2 months after planting is also higher in the cover crop plots. But Then we removed the cover crop and planted a cash crop. So we tried again in the next season. We grow the white clover mixed with buckwheat and black oat. Um, and this time we try to let it grow for 6 months. And infiltration again is improved by the cover crop mix, especially if we let it grow until 6 months after. The statistical difference between the white clover versus the background treatment is very significant. Microbial respiration also become very significant 6 months after the white clover established. And when using nematode as soil health indicator, we see that richness of the nematode. So the soil that has the Akamai cover crop mix has more higher diversity of different type of beneficial nematodes, especially the omnivorous nematode, which is a bigger nematode. They usually indicate a more structured soil food web. And we also calculate this nematode abundance into structure index. We call it structure index is significantly increased by the cover crop treatment, although it didn't affect other indexes that we calculated from the nematode community analysis. So when we put all the parameters together in the first trial where we only established the white clover for 2 months, the benefits of all the soil health properties is not related to each other, where here is the structure index and enrichment index is the indication of more omnivorous or more bacteria feeding nematodes are not in any good relationship with the microbial respiration in the soil or the water infiltration in the ground. So we didn't see too much benefits of growing the cover crop in a short term or the white clover in short term on the improving soil properties. But when we let it grow for 6 months, we can see that infiltration rate highly correlate with the soil moisture, volumetric soil moisture, and these are positively related to abundance of bacteria feeding nematodes, nematode diversity, and also slightly correlate with the structure index, which is the bigger nematode, omnivorous nematode, and predatory nematode abundance. And microbial biomass is also on a positive relationship with all this. Other soil fauna like rotifer or enchytrate worm also contribute to good positive relationship with the better water infiltration rate. So again, comparing the 2 months establishment of white clover, we don't see too much differences on the all the parameter measure between the cover crop treatment plots to the background treatment plots. But when we have it for growing for 6 months, we can see it start segregating, indicating that the cover crop treatment are changing the microbial activities in the soil or soil food web condition. So here is the summary of the use of white clover as a long-term ground cover. We have so far from this project, we are establishing this cover crop at Kahumana in Waianae. It's still too early to see the result. We also challenged by irrigation system in the farm situation, but we'll continue to monitor the project and the soil health condition by the white clover Akamai cover crop mix. And so this is all I have for this presentation.